What's up, everybody? Good morning. It's Stephen Williams, founder and president of the CreditRepairShop.com. We're going to talk about some things in today's video that I think is going to catch some people by surprise. I'm going to open up about some personal experiences that I've had with debt, and that I think it could be lessons for everyone that's watching the video to learn about, because there's certain types of debt you gotta be careful about, because it can come back to bite you. I had one that came back to bite me years ago, long time ago. But at the time when I was going through it, it felt like hell. I had to pay my way out of it, which was incredible. But I'm gonna tell you about how there are certain companies that are trapping people into certain situations where you really have no other alternative. And it's mostly people that have higher incomes, but I also see this happening with people that don't have high incomes, that have regular jobs, and they don't qualify to file bankruptcy, or they don't want to file bankruptcy. It's like they could put you into a box to where you're going to have to figure out either a settlement or some type of a payment plan to get out of debt. So let's first start with we only have a small list today of debt that is placed into the market. The charge off date 2014, $2.9 million. And this is payday loans, a payday lender, $2.9 million. And then we have another one from the same payday lender. This one was in August of 2014, $1.4 million. And we have another one from a bank. This is department store cards, small one, charge off date 2015, $719,000. And let's go to the other one. We have auto loans, charge off date. Whoa, charge off date was earlier this year, 2 of 2019. So this is very new. $3.3 million, $3.3 million. Usually when it comes to, this is probably auto loans that went bad the previous year, but then it crosses over, because remember, it goes through, it has to go through a process when they're doing repos, and probably they got their batch of repos that they sold at auction, and then they sent the balances and sold them over to a collection agency, or had a collection agency collecting them for them. That's basically what that is. But these are very new. So let's talk about it. Online, you see them on YouTube, a lot of videos, people talking about don't pay that debt, don't pay that debt. If you got charge offs and stuff like that, don't never pay them. And what they're not telling you is what they're not telling people. And I'm going to try to speak have more structure in my speaking, because some people were saying, like, I can't understand that. You skip around a little bit, and that's because my mind is it, like, when you know something, you tend to skip over some things. So let's start here. People are saying online, don't pay charge offs. Don't never pay a charge off debt. And what they don't tell people is that when a debt is charged off, it doesn't mean that you don't owe the debt. That they could take you to court if it's a collection agency, or if it's a collection agency that bought it, or a collection agency that is collecting it for their client, the credit card company. The charge off is just something that is that legally has to be done, that's required by the IRS for lenders. That's all it is. A charge off is not saying we're charging it off because we don't want to get the money for the debt anymore. That is absolutely not what a charge off is. You can look in the Fair Debt Collections Act, the laws, look it up online. You'll see that I'm telling you the truth. a charge off only means that it has reached a legal statute to where they have to charge off that debt. And then it can be collected. It goes into a status to where it could be collected by a debt collector. Either the debt collector bought it and they can try to collect it, or the client keeps it, the credit card company keeps it on their books. And I don't know how they keep it on their books, but somehow they keep it on their books, and they give it to a debt collector to collect it for them. It goes into their collection process, and that collector is collecting it for them. But it doesn't mean it went away. Or what they could do when they do the charge off is that they can forgive the debt totally. And we've had that happen with clients. And they give you a 1099-C form, and they consider that as income, and they turn that into the IRS. And the IRS is going to say, hey, you had this $10,000 credit card that you didn't pay back. We consider that the original credit card company forgave the debt. We consider that $10K as income to you now, and you better have filed that on your taxes as income, or we're going to penalize you. That's another thing that can happen. Or you could settle the debt with the collection agency, or now if you settle it with the collection agency, you will not get a 1099-C form. Sorry about that. Had to close my door in my office. So if you settle the debt with the collection agency, you will not get a 1099-C form, because they're actually just they've bought the debt for less, and it would be against the law for them to claim just because they gave you a discount on a debt that you had a $10,000 original debt with a credit card company. They bought it obviously for less than what the $10,000. They can't claim that they gave you a discount when they settled the debt for less than what was owed on that debt. They can't do that legally. So if you've ever ran into that, when a debt collector tried to do that, that's wrong. Now, if the debt collector is collecting it for the credit card company, they can. The credit card company will send a 1099-C form for the remaining balance that they are forgiving you a settlement on the original balance. And that's going to happen across the board with any type of debt settlement where the original creditor just hires out a debt collection company to pay the debt. To collect the debt. They have the right to say, we've paid money and we consider that as income, and we're going to get an additional write-off of that money that we're not collecting, and then you're going to be required as the account holder to claim that on your taxes as additional income. Now, it won't make you owe that amount. It's just going to be based on what percentage your income bracket is in when that is added in as income. So that's why it's very important when you get debts, you need to find out where they are. Whoever is coming after you, you have to find out where they are in the chain of collecting that debt. Are they collecting it for the original creditor? Did they purchase it from the original creditor and now they're the owner of the debt? Or have they been assigned from another collection agent? Sometimes this you can look on a sheet that you get, where when they send you that letter saying that you owe a debt and they want to know if you're going to collect it or if you want to dispute it, they'll have both of those in there. And sometimes you'll see that there's a bigger collection agency that will, what they do is they'll job it out and give other collection agencies that are in that area, in your area or the area where the people are at for those debts, they'll give it to them. Or sometimes it's just other collection agencies that think that they can collect the debt better than another collection agency, and but it'll have the first collection agency that purchased it, and then it'll say assigned to. So it'll be like 3 levels. So that's why you have to validate all of that. You have to validate who it was assigned to. You have to validate who it was purchased by, and then you should do another validation to the original creditor to make sure that everybody followed the law going down the whole chain there. And then if everything checks out, and in this video, I'm not gonna go into all those details. You can look at my other videos to find out about that. But if everything follows a chain and you end up having to pay the debt, you need to take care of paying the debt because it could come back to haunt you. Let me give you a situation that happened to me. The first one that happened to me was when I was in the military in the U.S. Army. There was a situation where I had a credit card, probably only charged $150. I was only 18 years old. I was barely making anything in the Army. And but I didn't pay the credit card off when I got out of the military. And years later, it came back as that the company tried to say I owed $2,500. They tried to a collection agency said I owed $2,500. They had said that all the interest over all of those years, and this is way before I got into doing credit repair. And from my memory, I knew that I'd only had charged $150, but because I didn't know the laws, I didn't know all the things that they could do and not could do. I just, I went to court, and I did answer, even though I didn't even know how to do it. I answered the summons line by line. Like, I read it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna fight. I'm not gonna let this just be a default judgment. I'm gonna show up to court, and I answered it, and I sent the answers to the attorney, sent it to the court, and then I showed up to court. When I showed up to court, there was a junior attorney. He's just like a yes man attorney. If anything was to come up, he didn't know what to say. So when the judge asked me about the debt, I said, I do not know that, because I knew that I never had a $2,500 charge account at the age of 18. And so I said I didn't know. And then he looked over, just luckily, I guess this judge was just more on the side of consumers. He looked over to that attorney and he said, well, okay, he doesn't know about this debt. Technically, what I was doing is I was disputing the debt in court. I was disputing the debt. And because I had wrote out the answers to the summons, it put them on notice that I was, making a formal legal request that they show me how I owe $2,500 to them, which at the time I didn't know that that's what I was doing it to them. I thought I was saying it to Visa, but by law, if they maybe had stated it in the summons in a way that I had skipped over it at that time. But when I read back through it, what it was stating in the summons was that they were basically saying that they had purchased the debt from Citibank Visa and that they were now coming after me with $2,500. I had put in a response that I never thought that I had a debt of $2,500 and that I didn't have it. I wrote it that I didn't have it with Citibank, but the judge took it as if I wrote it that I didn't have it with them because legally they're the owner. So when I had said that in court, also he turned to a junior attorney, and he said, well, what about this? And he said, immediately he just said, I want to postpone this hearing for a later day. And I could have at that time asked for a dismissal of the whole case, and the judge probably would have did it and made them come back and refile again, because at that point they really didn't have a legal basis to have me in court for that if he couldn't even answer that basic question for the judge, if he didn't have that documentation to hand over to me for the judge and for me, both of us, to review. So what ended up happening is they postponed it and redid it for 30 days later. 30 days later, I came to court, and the main owner of the whole law firm was there. The owner, the guy whose name is first on the law firm. So you got me sitting on one side and you have him on the other side. And I still said the same thing to the judge. And then the judge said, okay, what do you want to do, Mr. Williams? I said, I want to talk with the attorney. And when I went in, he let us go and talk in the back room. And I said, I don't ever remember $2,500. And some back and forth stuff went on with him. And then I just said, I would like to offer $500. And I'm going to tell you that was a big mistake on my part, but I just offered it. And there was other reasons behind that, because I had gotten my business going, and there was just things that I didn't want to be worried about. But long story short, I offered $500, and then he accepted it. We went back out in front of the judge. The judge accepted the agreement and said that I had a certain amount of days to get the money to them. I went to actually took the $500 to the collection agencies, to the company, like to their office. When I walked in with the check, the people at the office said that there was no way that attorney would have accepted $500 on a $2,500 debt. They couldn't believe it. One of the people got in touch with him, and he said, do it. It's over. The judge, we have an order. Take the money. The whole thing is over. Okay, now let me tell you the problems right away with that, and then I'm going to get into two other ones, one that I experienced and one that one of my clients recently experienced, one of my business clients. Number one, I should have validated the debt. When I would have validated the debt for statute of limitations, that debt was past statute of limitations, way past statute of limitations. Probably, I think when I looked at it, it was like 6 years past statute of limitations. The next thing was they had purchased the debt, even if it wasn't past statute of limitations, they had purchased the debt for probably at the most a few pennies on the dollar. But it was originally $150 balance, so they probably got my account for $5. So they made a lot of money on my account. And then just understanding the part about the summons, that if I could have answered and made a lot of, if I would have knew what I was doing at that time, probably from my response with the summons, they would have chose not to even move forward at all, and I would have paid zero, because they were actually breaking a lot of laws by even coming after me at that point. But they do this because if you don't know what's going on, they do this. This is how they make their money. And then also, like I said earlier, if I would have, when they didn't have the information in court, I could have asked for a dismissal, and they would have had to dismiss the whole case, because he didn't have anything legal to even show the judge to a certain standard that I legally had to pay them for the debt. Like, there was just a whole bunch of problems with that debt. Now, another experience that I had was, this was later in life. I had a business that I had started, and it was an incorporated company, and it had failed. I had never made any money in it. I had lost a lot of money in it. And what had happened was a company out of California had that I did business with, and I didn't finish paying them the rest of the money for services that we had provided. And I had just said, this isn't gonna work. I just totally had bankrupted that company, corporate bankruptcy filing. But what had happened was that company did a end around, which is something that you got to be careful about when you have a corporation and you file bankruptcy. You need to make sure you have all the documentation, and stress to them that everything is 100% corporate, like you're not signing for anything on a personal level, you're signing for stuff on a corporate level. If they try to make you sign on a personal level, just don't do business with them. And I had never signed anything on a personal level with that company, but they did an end around and they did a lawsuit in California, and I don't live in California. And then what they did is they did a foreign judgment shift over to Wisconsin. And when they did that, it was like, what the hell is this? Like, I didn't even know that this was out there, because I would have been fighting it right away if I would have saw it out there. We tried, my attorneys tried to do things to show them that this was included, but it was when it goes to judgment and it goes past a certain amount of months, and every state is different, but you only have a certain amount of months to argue that the judgment that they got should not be validated, and so you get an opportunity to go in the court and say why it shouldn't be validated. I would have been able to just show them that this is a corporate debt, but what ended up happening is that there's a certain collection agencies that only focus on high income people that have assets. Like what they'll do is they'll look at what you own, and then they'll look at what you owe the company, and then they'll look at what you own as an individual. And this will only work if it's a person, if they can come after you on a personal level. And then what they do is they'll put you into a situation where they could say, well, we're going to do a seizure of your assets. Now, I own my office building, I own properties without any mortgages on them. And so they kind of boxed me into a situation where I had to do a settlement on that debt. The original amount was over $101,000, and I ended up settling for $43,000. And I must admit, at the time when I was going through it, it was very stressful. But when I just paid the money and got over the situation, I had made many times more than that right away. Months later, replenished that and made way more. And if you watched any of my videos, and I talk about sometimes you have to just face up to stuff so you can get over it, so you can move on, because you don't want to be stuck. And you see a lot of people that are stuck when they owe debt, and then there's no other way out of it other than paying your way out of it. Some people just stay stuck and not do anything rather than figuring out a way to go ahead and just get out of that debt so they can move forward in their life. And that's something that you have to do. And that brings me to one of my clients that she ran into the same situation. She had a company, was doing over $14 million a year with her company, and family and people that she had helping run the business ended up just robbing her blind, and she just went crazy, like where she just said if she continued the business, she would have probably had a heart attack or a stroke. So she just closed the whole thing down. And the same thing happened to her, where she just, because she was depressed, that she closed her business and was just, leaving it alone and moving on. She thought she was just going to be able to just move on. There were some debts that were, when they took her to court, she just didn't pay attention. She thought everything was going to be in the corporate or the LLCs, being that with the bankruptcy. But there were some things that ended up moving over to her on a personal level, similar situation to me. And she has property, real estate. I think she had 13 or 14 rental properties. She has an office, commercial property. So they did the same thing where they boxed her in, and they made it to where she had to pay those, make arrangements to pay those, because she did not, when the judgments came about, and she just thought everything was going to be thrown into the corporate bankruptcy, that when they came back around and they they did another. These people that do this type of work, they're very sneaky with the way that they do it. They'll file cases in other areas, and you think, and even your own attorney might not be so detailed to know how to put that into the bankruptcy the right way. It is incredible on the way that they'll be sneaky and do those types of things, but it can happen. So anytime that if you do a corporate bankruptcy or LLC business type bankruptcy where it's not personal, you need to make sure you get all of the documentation. And then if you're sued later, you need to make sure that regardless of where it's at, you're going to have to get an attorney or show up in court and state your case that this debt is not to be put into your on a personal level, that it is a business debt and it needs to go in your business bankruptcy. But she ended up having to do settlements on that because they had said that they were going to seize real estate property, and she had even thought about selling properties to be able to pay off the debt. And because once it goes into a certain when you're being sued and they're trying to go after you for judgment, there's laws that stop you from being able to transfer or sell any properties within that. Once they make that filing against you, you cannot do anything. So she was kind of stuck. So one last thing. So before we close out, a company has approached me about a way to help people erase debt off of their credit reports and force companies into doing the 1099-C filing. That there's a way. People call my office, send me emails, tell me things you just wouldn't believe how many companies I turned down doing business with, because when I look at it, it's like this is something that's not going to work. It's just a scam. But this individual, he is saying that he's going to get me some proof, and we're going to do a test on a client. And he's saying that this is something that can be done in a short period of time. So I'm going to test it and see if it'll work, because I know from my own experience with dealing with some of our client files that you can, even if it's just recently charged off, you can push a company into just forgiving the debt and doing a 1099-C filing on the charged off debt. There's certain ways that you do it, but this company says that they're professionals, like they guarantee that it will be done in a short period of time. So we're gonna watch for updates on that, because I'll be talking about that in the future. So this is Stephen Williams, founder and president of the Credit Repair Shop, creditrepairshop.com. If you need help, go to our website and we'd be glad to help you. And there's also links below this video or above this video that you can click, that you can go straight to our website. All right, thanks a lot.